Are you looking for new ways to make your sales grow? You've tried other podcasts, but they don't seem to know. Harvest the growth potential of your product or service as we share stories and strategies that'll make your competitors nervous. Now, here's the host of the Harvest Growth Podcast, John LeClaire.
Welcome back to the show. I'm really excited to be having Bennett Maxwell. He's the founder and now the director of franchise sales for Dirty Dough. If you haven't seen this store, restaurant, cookie shop, whatever you want to call it, we'll get into the details of it. Man, you got to check it out. Delicious cookies that he has really grown this business, and he's got a great story behind it. But the biggest thing, you got to check out their website. You will walk away hungry for cookies, I guarantee it. So go to dirtydough.com. But I do want to dive into the stories of the business behind it. First of all, I want to welcome you to the show, Bennett.
Thanks, John. I appreciate it. That was a hell of an intro.
Well, I mentioned to you, it's funny, we've met and over the phone and Zoom, et cetera. And I was just recently in Abilene, Texas for a video shoot a couple of weeks ago. And we just happened to have, like, across the parking lot, a Dirty Dough, one of your stores. And so, of course, I had to go check it out. Man, phenomenal. Delicious cookies. I do recommend it to anybody. If you've got one in your town, I think there's 80 locations across the country. So check out the website, find out location near you. Just phenomenal cookies. I'm a huge cookie fan. But these were bar none, just the best I've had in a very long time. So great job in getting that all done. Let's dive into the business, though. You're making me hungry just thinking about it. Let's talk about Dirty Dough. What is it? So those that haven't heard of it, I kind of mentioned at a very high level what it is, but talk about the store. What you sell cookies, obviously I've mentioned, but I'm sure there's more to the story.
Yeah, Dirty Dough is a gourmet cookie franchise. As far as competition, Crumble is the largest. So if you think Crumble, similar to that, consumer facing. We're serving these, large third of a pound cookies. They're rotating quite often, served fresh, warm, all of that. On the back end, though, we do a centralized production model. So rather than, again, looking at a Crumble or somebody else, rather than making flour, sugar, butter, making everything from scratch per location, weighing it by hand, portioning it by hand, we do that for our franchisees and then ship it out to each franchisee. And the uniqueness about a Dirty Dough is Dirty Dough means the dough is dirty. So everything is stuffed. We use more mix-ins, more fillings. We do 3-layer cookies as well. And then we ship that out to our franchisees. All they have to do is pop it in the oven, press start. Ovens are programmed. Every cookie cooks for the same time, temperature, and fan speed. So that's what Dirty Dough is on the consumer facing, as well as, I guess, to the franchisee as well.
So it makes it super easy for the franchisees. And let's go down that path in a second about building the franchises, et cetera. First of all, the name, though. So what Dirty Dough, the name of the company, what does that mean in terms of, why did you choose that name? Why did it get developed originally?
Yeah, so a guy that I went to high school with chose the name, him and his wife, just because it sounded good. I came in as an investor, and then I ended up purchasing it and franchising it when they had just one location. And I think it was the first time I was ever in the store. A customer walks in, what does Dirty Dough mean? And again, the truth is, it just sounds cool. Well, the employee doesn't know that. The employee goes, oh, Dirty Dough is named Dirty Dough because we focus on the inside of the cookie. And I'm like, oh, that's awesome. So how many chocolate chips? And I remember we used 6 cups per batch because that was before we did a centralized production. We're increasing it by 50%. Now we're doing 9 cups. And then I found some specialized machines to do a 3-layer cookie. Again, it's supposed to correlate to life. Dirty Dough, this cookie is dirty and messy on the outside, but just as you testified, it's pretty damn good. Don't wait for life to be perfect in order for, you to enjoy it. So all of the messaging around the brand is, before you walk in a store, if you notice, it said, we care about your feelings on the window. And then you walk in and it says, the inside matters most. Then you grab a box, and on your box, it says, life gets messy and that's okay. So it went from one thing to now meaning another thing. And I do think that was pretty pivotal in grasping onto, I guess, a bigger picture and a bigger meaning of the name. I think both franchisees and customers alike have gravitated towards it.
That's really fun. It's part of the success, I think, is, you've got the branding, you just talk through the kind of the story, you walk in and everything kind of fits. It all makes sense. And you've done a really nice job with it. The other part, I mentioned the visuals, but the taste is phenomenal. How do you come up with these recipes? Because so for our listeners, you can tell us maybe, but it's roughly half. Some of the recipes are kind of the same every week. You've got your standards, and then you've got a few that are changing out every single week. So how do you come up with those constantly new recipes?
Good baker and a lot of taste testing. And the secret to taste testing is you take a bite. If you eat the whole cookie, you're 4,000 calories in, you're done with your taste testing. Um, but that's really fun. We started with 50 or 60 different cookie flavors and bases, but that means we have to produce 50 to 60 SKU items, ship it out from, we're in Utah. We ship it out to Pennsylvania, down to Florida, out to California. So what we've done more recently is I think we're down to 13 different bases, and then each one of those bases has 5 to 10 flavor profiles built on top of them. So it's what are the unique bases? Let's make sure they're all stuffed. And then what can we top them with that tastes the best? And I think something, I guess the last thing I'll mention on that, getting the emotion outside of the business. Like, I don't care if we change the chocolate chip recipe or any recipe. I don't even care if I hate a cookie, because I'm not the one that keeps us in business. So looking at it more objectively and saying, like, what is our target demographic, 25 to 55-year-old mom, what does the majority of them think is the best chocolate chip cookie? So a lot of it is that tasting and then trusting the data and trying to take away that emotion.
Well, I have to say, I'm a huge chocolate chip cookie fan. For me, it is the cookie, right? It has to be. And compared to your competition, I must say yours is phenomenal. I actually don't like your major competitor's chocolate chip cookie. It's all milk chocolate. And anyways, yours was phenomenal. So I was eager to try that the first time I went in your store, and it did not miss. It was truly phenomenal. We talked about recipes, the flavors, etc. A quick story on taste testing. I will say one of my favorite jobs I've had back before I started this for many years ago. One of my first marketing jobs was with Nabisco, and I was there during the transition, unfortunately, in some ways, when they got rid of trans fats. If you recall, Oreo was sort of the big brand that they came after in the very early days. That's what caused us to lose trans fats. We could have a whole discussion on right or wrong or whatever. But as part of that, I was able to participate in a lot of taste tests as we changed the recipe to get rid of them. And they're not as good as they used to be, but it was a lot of fun, I must say, to go through those taste tests. So that's got to be a pretty fun part of your job to taste them
you
each
have a
week
refined
as you
palate?
come up with new recipes.
Like, can you taste the difference between which one tastes more salty or more butty? I'm like, I don't know. This one tastes good and this one tastes great.
Same.
That's what I know.
I drew smiley faces. A big smiley face means it was good, really good. A small smiley face means it's pretty good, whatever. Yeah. So I wouldn't say I'm refined. I was not the main person doing it, but on the marketing team, we had experts that came in that were trained, and like, as a consumer, you can tell good or bad, right? Which is going to be better than another version or whatever. So that's a fun part of the job for sure. So the taste is important, but the visual is so important. Again, I do encourage our audience, check out their social feeds or go to dirtydough.com. You can see photos and then great video as well, showing these delicious. I mean, you could taste them just by seeing the videos. How do you do that? Where do you film? How do you come up with these great shots of food, which is hard to film?
Yeah. The goal is definitely the food porn. That's kind of the joke. Like, if you make it look really good, it is like, holy crap. I mean, starting off, even without, I guess the product itself helps you, because right when I bought the company, we were at, one store, no marketing budget, nothing. You have an employee that has a little bit of a downtime, an ASU college girl. She breaks a cookie open and it has this ain't Amazon or some weird clip, and it gets millions of views, just because it was the product itself. But it's mainly because of the inside. Like, what I wanted to do is go the opposite of the competitors. Crumble is, a plain cookie with a lot of things on top, half inch of frosting. And it's like, no, can we take that frosting or sweet cream or caramel and throw it in the middle? And by doing that, it's made our videos a lot more appealing. But yeah, we've switched through different marketing agencies, and a lot of that same thing is testing. Is a 30-second video better or a 10-second video, and just which platforms? But that's always fun. The first set of videos that I got, I remember I was so stoked. I was like, this is a professional company because these videos look good.
That's awesome. That's fun. And now you talk about the franchise model. Let's shift gears and talk about the business a little bit. So you've grown this from 1 to now over 80 different franchises. How'd you do that? Like, what was the sort of tipping point in your growth?
Yeah, we franchised end of 21, December of 2021. And my background is sales. I've done a lot of door-to-door sales. I served a 2-year Mormon mission, which is a lot more sales, Cutco. And so way before we franchised, I was kind of pre-pitching the idea, like, John, what do you think about, I'm thinking about franchising this cookie company, and I'm thinking about centralizing the production and doing this. And, and then I'm getting the feedback. And then I slowly creating what I know the market wants. And then, hey, what do you know? It's launched. Now, hey, John, I created exactly what you want. Are you or somebody, you're interested in buying a Dirty Dough? Right off the bat, we'd sold 60 franchises in the first like 6 or so months. And then none of them have been opened yet though, right? You sell one and it takes, 6 months to a year to actually open it. We get a lawsuit from Crumble saying that we had rectangle boxes and they had rectangle boxes. We had sprinkles, they had sprinkles. They used vanilla ice cream. We did. They use whimsical designs. We use whimsical, just a bunch of bullshit. And it's like, whatever, you could sue companies, just kind of slow them down. We had thrown up some billboards, Dirty Dough coming soon. And then Crumble kind of responded with like 1 million billboards because they're, $1 billion company. We're a one-store company. And then a local news article picked up the lawsuit, Crumble's suing these companies. And then it's like, okay, now it's public. So how are we going to respond? So the first thing was billboards. And I think that gave us a lot of exposure. And they were billboards like, our cookies don't crumble with competition. Cookies so good you're being sued. Let your taste buds be the judge. Things like that, kind of, tongue in cheek. And I'm sure, a few 100,000 people saw them on the freeway, but I posted on LinkedIn and other social medias, tagged Crumble, I like your billboards. What do you think about mine? And then that got us interviews on CNBC and Good Morning America and really got millions of eyes on us. By the end of that year, we'd sold like 290 franchises. We had, the cookies are hot. We had a simplified model. We had a really good team. We just needed more exposure. And our response to the lawsuit gave us a lot of exposure about that. Since then, it's all been settled, which is great. But it did launch us from, a one-store company. Now we've sold 450 plus, 80 of which are open.
That's amazing growth. And you think back to 2021, so in 3-4 years, that's phenomenal growth. And part of the reason it's interesting to hear the lawsuit story behind this, I like how you capitalized on something that could be so hard, right? Difficult to go through. A lawsuit, it's never fun to get notice on something like that, but you made the most of it. You turned it into something fun and really grew that business. So that's a great story to think about. How, for our audience's sake, if you've got some trials, difficulties, struggles you're going through, how do you flip it, right? So flip it on its side, especially when there's natural exposure going out there. Getting PR by going through a struggle or a trial is, I think, easier in some ways, right? People love to hear those stories. So getting onto CNBC, as you mentioned, and other platforms and hearing about what you had to go through, you can truly turn it into something positive. And the old adage of, no news is bad news kind of thing. Like to even bad news can help grow your company to a point, right? But if you use it in the right way, right? It's all about how you use those news. Any tips or kind of like things you learned through that process on if others might be facing struggles, whether it's a lawsuit or something else with their business, to flip it on its head?
Yes. Well, my purpose wasn't like, this is going to blow up and it's going to sell franchises. It's like, oh, this is a bad situation. 6 weeks have gone by, nothing's happened, but now it's public. So now everybody who's going to inquire to buy a Dirty Dough franchise is going to be asking me about the lawsuit. Might as well just get out there and be open about it. So I broke down every single point of the lawsuit and showed my opinion on it. And most of them were like, this is verifiably false, and this is how you check out. And a lot of people are like, why are you doing that? I mean, we did same thing with the billboards. We paid some professional actors to make silly commercials of Big Cookie Co. shutting down lemonade stands for selling cookies, and just had a lot of fun with it. But I guess sticking by who you are and what you're wanting to do. That original news article said Crumble suing 2 smaller cookie companies, Dirty Dough and Crave. And I know the owner of Crave, great guy. We both spent over $300,000 on the lawsuit. I sold 400 franchises because of it, and $10 million in revenue because I was out there. And the whole time I was pushing him as well as some other cookie companies that I know are getting sued. And they're like, oh, I don't want to make them, I don't want to anger them. I'm like, dude, they're already suing you. What are they like? Are they going to make up more stuff to sue you? Which for us they did, but again, we got it all settled. But I do think it's like, I guess don't run away from the battle. And it's, if you have a stance, be open with it. I think people gravitate towards, authenticity.
I like that. And I would add to that strength too. Whether it's customers you're dealing with, or in your case, franchisees, you show your strength as a business when you're willing to react to it and not trying to hide or cower or, walk away from challenges as they approach you. So your franchisees saw that you're strong, meaning you're going to stick this out, right? You're going to be successful so they can partner with you. And a lot of our listeners, they may not be in franchise businesses, right? But they have customers at least, right? And same thing, if we show our strength as a business, that we're going to be around and we're going to be successful and we're going to help them to be successful, whatever that is, right? Whether we're selling a product or a service or a franchise, whatever that might be. So that's a great story to share. Over the years, what would you say has worked best for your business? So this is one story that sort of catapulted everything. And now you're at that stage, okay, now I've got all this growth, but where do I go from here? What else is, there's not going to be a lawsuit, luckily, right? Around every corner. What's next, or what has worked well for your business beyond that to really help continue that growth?
Yeah. So it was just over 3 years ago, 3 years and a few months that I bought the company, and it's been less than since we franchised it. And I've never worked in food, never worked in franchising. I don't know the difference between a franchisee or franchisor just, 3 years ago. And it was surrounding myself with people that did. So first getting, a few good employees that have the restaurant experience, and then building a board of advisors by giving them, 0.5% to 1.5% of equity of a company that at that time was literally worth nothing. And then you get somebody who owns the largest property management franchisor that is a phone call away from you anytime, that's been doing it for, 20 years. Right when we franchised, I hired a CEO who founded a company called Maui Wowie Smoothies and Coffee in 1983. It was the first ever mobile franchise in the world, peaked at 650 plus locations. So she came on because I'm like, who wants to buy a dirty dough from Bennett? Bennett doesn't know how to run anything. But Jill has been doing this for 40 years. And then we got on Greg Majewski, former CEO of Jimmy John's, as an advisor. And then beginning of this year, he came on as CEO. We pivoted the other CEO to president. And then just last week, Greg has another company with a ton of other brands. They actually ended up acquiring us. So, which was great. It's what I've all been working for. But it was because constantly it's always like, I don't know franchising. I know that I don't know that. So I need to go find people that do and try to take the best advice I can.
I love that. It's realizing our strengths and our weaknesses or opportunities, right? And filling gaps. We can't do it all, right? So it's the entrepreneurial instinct to, hey, this is my idea, I'm starting it. And that's great, right? We need to have that energy and drive, but there's some experience. And also, as you mentioned, connections, right? Like whether it's property managers or whatever it might be along the way. And also avoiding roadblocks, right? That other people, if they've done this before for other businesses, they know some of the stuff to avoid. Every business is a little bit different, but so many things are shared across those. So finding whether it's a partner, a CEO you bring in, an advisory board member, somebody, but getting team members and mentors that really have experience doing what we want to become, right? So doing what we want to do eventually, not what we're doing today, right? As entrepreneurs, we sort of learn along the way. If we bring in people that have that experience 10 steps ahead of us, they can help us get there, right? Help us go those 10 steps successfully, avoiding the roadblocks, some of the pitfalls, and growing faster.
Yeah. And I think all of that is 1,000% true. And a secondary benefit is the sales side. Like if you are selling franchises and you have hey, this guy opened up 1,000 Jimmy John's, and ran the company, that's going to instill a lot more confidence in a franchisee buying into the system. So then it increases sales. And then when you increase your franchise sales, it increases your revenue. And now your marketing dollars increase. All of your centralized production costs go down because now you're scaling with more stores open. So it kind of is a constant upward spiral, or it could be a constant downward spiral. I've hit both of those several times in the business. For sure.
Bennett, this has been a lot of fun. It's a great business. I can't recommend more. I can't wait. I'm glad to hear that there's so many more coming on board. We've got a handful of them in Colorado. I can't wait to have some even closer to my home, my office as well. And next time I'm in Abilene, I will be sure to stop by there. It's a phenomenal business. I encourage our audience, please check out dirtydough.com. As always, if you're driving, it's in the show notes, of course. Well, Bennett, is there anything I didn't ask that you think could be helpful for our audience?
Yeah, if anybody is in business, knowing it's been very hard. We've had to raise millions of dollars the entire time because you're always losing money, even though you're gaining money and the economy and all of that. And for me to have my sanity, I just looked at other businesses or the Business Wars podcast or talked with friends. And it's like, there's not any business that doesn't almost not make it 10 times. So if you're in the business, like looking at Nike and FedEx and Walmart, they almost went bankrupt, or GM did go bankrupt. You're like, okay, it's just a little bit more on the grit. Can I keep going? Can I keep pivoting? For me, that's helpful. And hopefully that's helpful to any other aspiring entrepreneurs.
It's so true. And it's one of the reasons I love doing this podcast, but also listening to others and reading books, hearing stories, because virtually every successful business, if they're being honest and they share their difficulties along the way, man, they face struggles that it's almost like the bigger the struggle, the more successful the business is, and vice versa sort of thing. So it definitely happens. It's good to hear that from people that have been so successful that, hey, there's struggles and trials along the way, just like a lot of our audience might be currently going through right now. Well, if there's anybody in our audience that might be interested not only in visiting a Dirty Dough store for obvious reasons to enjoy the amazing cookies, but might be interested in a franchise, how do they get a hold of you?
BennettMaxwell.com is my website. It has, the Dirty Dough franchising info, my podcast, and any social media, as well as if anybody just has any questions about franchising. So many people gave me free advice that every week I find myself talking to a handful of random people from LinkedIn on like, here, this is what I did and this is what did not work. I would suggest you do this.
Yeah, that makes total sense. I do want to tell our audience, again, go to their website, check it out. But also, if you know or have need in your own business to meet with a member of my team, absolutely free for a 30-minute strategy consultation. We've launched and grown hundreds of products and services since 2007 and learned some of our strategies while growing OxyClean back in the Billy Mays days. We're here to help. So please go to harvestgrowth.com and set up a call to discuss further.